Hey there, geeks and gamers. We're back for the final iteration of the best games of the generation that I'm recommending to people. This is going to cover the final 40, cutting off at the top 10, which we will be discussing in our upcoming stuff next week. I don't like the way that makes my eyes look when I'm having to focus on these two different things, but whatever. Um, so kicking off at number 48. All right, I guess just talking more about these, like I strongly would recommend everything that was in the last kind of batch of these, but those are maybe all, if you like this genre, you should kind of give that a shot. This one is more, I think everyone should play these games regardless. Even if it's not something in a genre that you ordinarily get down with, it might be good enough to get you into that genre, or you would still enjoy it despite that. And that's maybe the kind of cutoff point that I would describe for these is like these are the greats, these are the fantastics, these are the if these are the ones where it's like I will be talking about these games forever in some regard. They are worth referencing. They are worth checking out as both a like snapshot of something that's important to the industry or just something that's kind of cool that exists. Every one of these is fantastic. I was going and reviewing the previous clips to make sure that they're all fine, and I have discovered that I use the word fantastic a lot on these. I would love it if someone could cut all those together because Lord knows I'm not going to do it. So as much as I would like to stop saying fantastic, I've got a feeling it's going to keep coming up. But number 48 is Forza Horizon 3. This is the not the newest iteration in Microsoft's open world driving franchise, but it is way better than the fourth one. They set you in Australia in it, which gives you the ability to hit an incredible amount of different like biomes to drive around in, which I think that four was really lacking on being set in Great Britain. And the car selection is fantastic. The difference of the terrain is fantastic. You can just really get into fuck. I just did double fantastics. You can just really get into so many fun things with different cars. They have a couple wacky cars in there, like you can drive around in a warthog from Halo, which is very fun. And they have a Hot Wheels expansion pack, which is fucking wild. That has you driving like Lamborghinis and Porsches and all things like that across gigantic Hot Wheels tracks. Forza Horizon 3 is a phenomenal experience, and even if you're not normally into like car or driving games, it's still worth checking out because I think it could maybe sell you on this one in particular. Up next, we have got Nidhogg 2. If you wanted to tell me that you thought Nidhogg 1 was a better game than 2, I think that there is merit to that, which we will get to in a little bit. But I still think that what Nidhogg 2 does to the formula of Nidhogg, adding in the different weapons, um, is still supremely fun. I think it's got a really cool, like, I don't want to call them like Muppets, but like this weird, gross looking, kind of puppety type weirdo art style. And I think it's a fun one-on-one combat experience. Great party game. A good game of Nidhogg lasting like 10, 15, 20 minutes. Some of the best gameplay I've experienced over the last generation. But while we're talking about party fighting games, I would be remiss if I did not talk about Gang Beasts, aka Super Street Fighter 4 Clanging Bear Suit Edition. Gang Beasts is a brawler game with that you can play with like up to like 8 or 10 people, where you are these weirdos who you have different bumpers control the fist that you're swinging with. Holding them lets you grab things, and it's just janky and weird, and they make dumb noises when they're walking around, just like oh, like little Beavis and Butthead type noises. I absolutely adore these little guys. But it has created some of the best, just like radiant gameplay as a result of weird physics. Highly recommend it. One of the best local co-op part or co-op competitive party games ever made. Long may it reign. Coming up next after that is Super Mario 3D World. This was the Wii U 3D Mario platformer that is getting a port to Switch coming up soon, and I highly recommend everyone play it. it presents itself like it's kind of more like one of the new Super Mario games, but honestly, it has more in common with the Galaxy games than anything else. The 3DS version of this was Super Mario 3D Land, which was just like a carved off, bare bones as fuck thing that they needed to release on the 3DS to sell some 3DSs. I almost think that it's insulting to this game that they share the same naming convention because this blows that out of the water so fucking hard. It is so amazing what it does with Mario, and I'm really looking forward to people being able to play it since it won't be locked onto the Wii U. After that is once again hitting another super fun co-op or like co-op. Now this one's cooperative party game, which is Keep Talking and Nobody Explodes. One player is armed, one or more players really are armed with bomb defusal manuals, and then one person has to be read instructions to defuse a bomb that they're looking at. You run into the two parties of people needing to communicate with each other very quickly as you run a timer, but also needing to be accurate with very poorly described things most of the time. It's simple enough for anyone to pick up and play, but also offers so much room to get good at it. Like there was a point where Ryan and I were just fucking ninjas at that shit, and we could just get in. We knew exactly how we needed to communicate all of the weird puzzle things to each other. Keep Talking Nobody Explodes is fucking phenomenal. Play it, just play it. Uh, After that, we have got another strategy game. This one not having the so well. It's actually this one does have some RPG elements, but I don't know. I don't feel good calling it a strategy RPG. But is Into the Breach. This is the next game from the person who did FTL Faster Than Light, and which is a game that I like an incredible amount, but have a lot of gripes with. Into the Breach is damn near a perfect game. I think if you were to take anything away or add anything to this game, it would not be as cohesive of a product. It's a strategy game. Your opponent's moves are all telegraphed before they are going to make them, and then it's a matter of um, building your strategy to beat them. Everything whenever you mess up in this game, it really makes it feels like it's your fault, and I think that's what every strategy game should strive to do. It never feels like the AI is cheating. Um, After that is another very recent release, but it is the newest game from Supergiant Games. It is Hades, another fantastic roguelike. I like Bastion a whole awful lot, and then honestly haven't been that enamored with any of Supergiant's other games. But Hades is the first one of them, the other ones being Transistor and Pyre, that really I fell in love with again. Hades is a sublime experience to play, to run through. It does it has so many narrative hooks and storyline. The voice acting's amazing, the music's amazing. Like it's the first Supergiant game that I think might be as good at well, it's definitely as good as Bastion, but it might even surpass Bastion. um Phenomenal fucking game. Everyone should play Hades. I need to stop ending these with everyone should play, because I think that everyone should play every single one of these games. Following Hades is a 3D platformer where you can't jump. I am talking about Snake Pass. This is if there was a Rareware like genre, this would be the number one. This game so much feels and looks like a Rareware game. It's insane. But it is a platforming game where you play as a snake. You can raise your head up and you can slither, but you can't jump. So it's a lot of like needing to coil your way around things, hang off of stuff, and just kind of snake about. They've got like coins on every level that you can collect to kind of add a little bit of extra challenge to it. It does that really good platformer challenge like that, where just to beat the levels, it's not too tough. But if you want to go for everything, then you're really going to be pushing yourself to the limits. It's such a cool thing of what a 3D platformer can be. Um, After that is the game that I will unapologetically defend until the day I die. It is the prototype for Marvel Spider-Man, Sunset Overdrive. Sunset Overdrive is Insomniac's like open world traversal based shooter thing. The writing is not fantastic, and it was released as an exclusive to the Xbox One, which I would say before the Xbox One got good, but the Xbox One never really quite captured the market the way it needed to. And I think that's super unfortunate because by the time they ported it to PC, nobody gave a shit anymore. I think that it is interesting as an artifact to see what would become Marvel's Spider-Man, as you absolutely can see it in this game. It's super fantastic. The shooting, the weapons are all really fun. The different perks and stuff you can get, super fantastic. Highly, highly, highly recommend Sunset Overdrive. but I am the only one who does recommend it. Switching from an Xbox exclusive over to a PlayStation exclusive is Ghosts of Tsushima. This is another one that I played very, very recently since getting the newer PlayStation. And I am honestly devastated at how enamored I became with it. It's an open world samurai kind of ninja type game set in like feudal, like ancient feudal, I shouldn't say ancient, but feudal Japan. During the Mongol invasion of the island, it is set in a degree of historical accuracy involving the Mongol invasion of Tsushima Island. And it has, in my opinion, better and more engaging combat than Sekiro. It does open world stuff without being overbearing or cramming too much crap to do in it. It's drop dead gorgeous. It's got a pretty compelling storyline as well. Like really, just on every front, this game nails what an open world game should be. Up next is one of the easiest pitches I think you could possibly do for a game. It is a first person shooter, and time only moves when you move. I am talking about Superhot. Be it the VR experience or the normal one, and they are different games, Superhot is such a cool idea that executes beautifully. It is a first person shooter, and everything is frozen as long as you don't move. So you have to, if there was a Matrix video game, it should be this, frankly. It's got a striking art style with the white and red. It reminds me a lot of like a kind of Mirror's Edge look, but absolutely phenomenal first person shooter. Everyone play Superhot if you haven't already, but I also think most people have played Superhot at this point. Might even be on Game Pass. Following up to other things related to Microsoft, it is Cuphead. This is one of the most beautiful games I have ever seen, likely will ever see, because of its super unique style, and anything that ever tries to do it again is going to be derivative of Cuphead, which is somewhat unfortunate. But it's a run and gun / boss rush game that is tough as nails, and I honestly think that kind of hurts the game a little bit, because this is something I want everyone to see and I want everyone to play. They have an easy mode in it. When you complete a level in easy mode, you don't get to make progress in the game. So you'll kind of be locked out of seeing content. And it's just something I want everyone to see, every single level of every single boss, every single piece of art that they made for it. It's such a cool fucking game. But it's a little tough. Hunters need not apply. Up next is a short little game that we played on this channel one time. It is Minit. Minit is a Zelda-esque Metroidy adventure type game where every single life of yours is on a 60-second timer. So you have to see everything that you can accomplish in that 60 seconds. After 60 seconds, you die and you start over onto a thing. You're like overall, you continue to carry items over between your lives, and a lot of like the world stuff you do gets reset. So if you get like a weapon that will help you clear a way, like clear a new pathway, you can use that to kind of like get around. And there's like different checkpoints that you can kind of hit where you will respawn from that point every time. But super cool thing. And then it has a new game plus where it reduces the timer to like 45 seconds. They should make another one of those. Following up Minit is a controversial inclusion on a best games list, but it is The Quiet Man. The Quiet Man is Deadly Premonition used to be the room of video games, but now The Quiet Man is the room of video games. This is a terrible game that is so bad it loops back around to being amazing. It's hilarious how bad this game is and how it got the marketing push that it did. It does have a degree of production value in it. Nothing about it like makes logical sense if you think about it for even a moment. It's fucking terrible, but because of that, it is good. And the way that it's terrible is great. Everyone play Quiet Man. It is an essential thing. If nothing else, it's how not to make a game. Up next at number 34 is God of Boy. I'm referring to God of War 2018, not the original God of War. Nothing about this game should work, let alone as well as it does. I remember when they were announcing it, showing this like, third person, like over the shoulder camera, like Last of Us asked God of War narrative driven shit. As a huge God of War fan, I was like, oh, this is This is just everything trying to be like Last of Us, which is a game I fucking hate. And I think this game's gonna be fucking terrible. And then it came out, and I got my hands on it, and I ate my fucking words so hard. It is different, but that does not mean bad. It as a fan of the God of War franchise, the things that it does narratively are amazing. The gameplay still holds up. The Leviathan axe is super fun to recall back to you. Play God of Boy. Up next, number 33, another recent release, another one I haven't quite finished, but I've almost wrapped up at this point. It is Crash Bandicoot 4. It's about time. Somehow, the Skylanders studio made a incredibly good new Crash Bandicoot game. It also takes a look. It's honestly just like you picked up and started playing a new Crash Bandicoot game. It retcons all of the other games that happened after Crash Bandicoot 3 that are all really terrible. It adds in so many smart decisions about how you make progress and interact with a 3D platformer, with again making the base level fairly easy and then putting in a bunch of optional things to make it a lot harder. Maybe even too hard at times. But Crash Bandicoot 4 is amazing if you like those old Crash Bandicoots. It's like another one of those. Extremely competently made 2D platformer. Next up is number 32. Another super fun party game, but it is the original Nidhogg. I rank this over Nidhogg 2, despite it being fairly close in the grander scheme of things, because there's a purity to Nidhogg of it's raw, it's dirty, just having the sword and the jump and all that. None of these other weapons, none of this other bullshit. Just the fucking weird fencing game with your long swords. Such a like easy for anyone to pick up and dick around with because of how simple it is to understand the concept. But it's a crazy high skill ceiling. Once again, a long game of Nidhogg of just like fucking fighting for control back and forth is so goddamn compelling. It's one of the best party games that you can possibly play. Up next is another game that was a Wii U title originally that did get ported over to Switch and 3DS. But it is Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker. Throughout Mario 3D World, there are these Captain Toad levels that are okay. They're, I guess, okay little diversions. And they decided to blow those out into their own game. And it is a night and day difference between the quality of the ones that are in 3D World and then this dedicated game form. It's almost like 3D Land to 3D World of difference. Captain Toad's Treasure Tracker it's a phenomenally good like little puzzle game. I don't want to call them puzzle boxes necessarily, but it's you going around these little things. You have to collect all these gems, get to the end. It's a simple yet super effective concept when they actually implement it, as well as like looking drop dead gorgeous. Number 30 is a first-person shooter game that released in between Call of Duty and Battlefield when it was released. It was set out to die. It is Titanfall 2. It is also the sequel to a mediocre at best online-only first-person shooter. The Titanfall 2 campaign is nothing short of extraordinary and is something that every single first-person shooter fan should play. The mech stuff is super fun. The online is super fun. The campaign fucking goes places with some of the things that it lets you do. It has a lot of like movement oriented stuff, so it's another one of those like hyper mobile shooters, kind of like your Dooms. Play Titanfall 2. It's so fucking good, and it's often like $5. Like there's no reason not to play it. Up next is not my favorite walking simulator, but pretty fucking close to it. It is What Remains of Edith Finch. The crux of this is you are going into a Winchester Mansion-esque house where every person in this cursed family will die in weird ways. So you're going about their house, and when you go into their rooms, you get to relive their final moments, or you get to see how they died. And it is often every single one of these little vignettes is just super duper unique and super duper cool. And given some hit harder than others and some work better than others, but all of them are at the very least okay. Edith Finch is one of those games that even if you don't like walking simulators, I think that there's something worthwhile to see and something that's very compelling about that shit. Play Edith Finch. Also on Game Pass, I'm pretty sure. Following that is a game that ranks fairly low on this list for considering how fucking revered it is, but is Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I think that Breath of the Wild is a really good prototype for what the next Zelda game should be, but it just has too many warts associated with it for me to like it much higher than this. I think that the way it has revolutionized what Zelda should be, I think this open world format is what all three Zeldas should be going forward. Keep 2D Zeldas the way they are so you can kind of get that classic Zelda feel, like your Link's Awakening remake or whatever. But Breath of the Wild is amazing for, again, refreshing what Zelda should be. I hope they nail a lot of the little complaints I have in the follow up. And also, they just put out that fucking Muso game, which, ugh, whatever. They'll get around to it. It'll come out. It'll be good. Up next, number 27 is a game that has gotten talked about quite a bit during the greater Game of the Generation discussion, but it is Control. I have never seen the X Files. I have never seen Twin Peaks, but this game is what I understand those shows to be, and I will not take any questions on that. It is a cool third-person action. Again, although it's like PS2y in a way, where it's like you just don't see games kind of with this gameplay or like gameplay style anymore. Where you're going through this weird SCP wiki foundation of weird events, and it's so cool minute to minute. The gameplay is fantastic. The stuff in it's super weird and super awesome. Control's amazing. Up next is the second best one of this kind of game ever made. It is Devil May Cry 5. It is the newest in a long-running character action game franchise, and the first one in a while. The last one was Devil May Cry 4, which was an Xbox 360 title, and this is now coming out kind of tail. It was like an Xbox 360 launch window. Then the Ninja Theory made that one that is still really good, but nobody liked except me, I guess. But it returns to the roots. It's so competently made, and so it does all the things you want a game like that to do. The options that you get with the different characters give you unique playstyles while still like understanding the game's core logic. Dante having all of its combinations of different things, it's amazing, and even a good spot to drop in if you're kind of not familiar with the character action genre at large. It's a fantastic entry point. Up next, number 25, getting close to the end now. It is Jackbox Party Pack 3. This is the best Jackbox game that they have ever made. It's got like your TKOs. It has the original iteration of Trivia Murder Party. It's got Quiplash in it. Every single game in it's got Fake in it. Every single game in Party Pack 3 is good, at least, but most of them are some of the best games that they have ever made. No time when we are all getting together and playing Jackbox do we not boot up 3 for at least a little bit. Mostly because of Faking It, which is so fucking good. But if you can own one Jackbox game, own Jackbox Party Pack 3. After that, we have got a game that I think it's uncomfortable to talk too terribly much about, but it is Frog Fractions. And I specifically am only counting Frog Fractions 1. Frog Fractions is now on Steam for free, so it's really easy to get into, but then you can also get the iconic Cap DLC for $10, which is something I recommend doing and then playing through with after you play through the game once. But Frog Fractions is one of the most important games I think I will ever play in my life, and it it's so cool. Play Frog Frat. Go get it on Steam right now. Just go play through it. It's not very long. Up next is Return of the Obra Dinn, the Sean Holloway favorite that showed up quite a bit during Game of the Generation. It is a deductive puzzle game where you are given different details and you're attempting to figure out who every single person on this ship that mysteriously washed ashore with the entire crew dead. You're trying to figure out who everyone is and assign them so they can get their proper insurance payout. You need to figure out who it is and how they died. And figuring that out, they do so many neat little tricks to help you get there. Unfortunately, I figured out how to cheese the game at a very early period that really detracted from the puzzle solving later in it, but it's still a fantastic game. That story is dope as a motherfucker, and they tell it in a really compelling way with the nonlinear narrative. After Obra Dinn is another narrative-driven game. It is Night in the Woods. I talked about this a decent amount during the proper Game of the Generation discussion, but as a result, it's going to show up on here. You're going to be hitting a lot of games that I kind of talked about already. But Night in the Woods is a super good narrative-driven. It's a melancholy game, and I like that a whole awful lot about it. I play it during the autumn every year, and it's got. I'm not one for like autumn or fall vibes, but this game really gets me there. It really kind of does that stuff for me. It's a good tale of someone's mental anxiety and like them going back to their old town where everything's kind of like changing. People are moving away. It's just a super compelling story, top to bottom. Play Night in the Woods. It's great. Greg is cool. Greg rules. After that is a franchise that I catch a lot of flack for liking, and I totally get it because it's largely shitty. But they released Sonic Mania, and by they, I mean Sega asked a bunch of Sonic fan game makers to make a good game because Lord knows they don't fucking know how to do that anymore. And as a result, it produced the greatest Sonic the Hedgehog game ever made. Sonic Mania is maybe the only time being a Sonic fan where I have not felt embarrassed to be a Sonic fan. Like I think Sonic Mania is a fantastic game that stands on its own, and then they promptly released Sonic Forces very shortly after it. That made me go right back to being embarrassed about liking Sonic again. Sonic Mania is great. Even if you don't like Sonic, give it a shot. It's a super good 2D platformer. Up next is a game that I just can't stop playing that came out this year, but it is Risk of Rain 2. I liked the original Risk of Rain a decent amount, and then they decided to do a sequel to it where they completely flip the script and make it a 3D action game. It's the same general idea of the game, but it's in 3D now. And when I saw the stuff for it, I thought it was going to be absolute dog shit, and I was completely wrong. Risk of Rain 2 is one of the best roguelikes ever made. It's super fun to play with your friends. It's super fun to play alone. It's just fun. Again, it's that feeling. I think a good roguelike, you want to feel like you have broken the game. That's what you should always be like aspiring for. And Risk of Rain gives you that often, and the nature of the game makes it so that you can both get super far in it and still complete it and win. Play Risk of Rain 2, especially before the year's over. Following up with another game that starts with an R and ends in a 2, it is the Resident Evil, the new Resident Evil 2 that they made, the 2 remake. This is Resident Evil 2 reimagined so that it plays like Resident Evil 4, which is one of the best video games ever made. Um, but the format of it makes it way better than Resident Evil 4, in my opinion. It's way more radiant with the ways that Mr. X roams around and kind of like blocks off your paths. Like it's a much shorter game. Like I remember I got it and then I immediately played through it like twice, just back to back because of how much fun I had and like how it's different on your different playthroughs, despite kind of knowing where the things are and knowing how to solve the puzzles. It's way more survival horror also compared to the like action horror of Resident Evil 4. They are stingy with your resources. Play Resident Evil 2. Don't play Resident Evil 3 remake. That one sucks shit. Getting back to new iterations and old franchises is Doom 2016 at number 18. Doom 2016 is one of the best first-person shooters ever created for a number of reasons. The I it's a hard game to talk about in 45 seconds about what makes this game so fucking phenomenal. But you get to kill demons, you get to go to hell and you get to fucking kill demons. You get cool ass weapons. Glory kills are one of the best things ever made. It's got push forward combat where it does not want you to hide or play passive. Like it wants you to get into the thick of it and it rewards you for that action, much like Bloodborne does. It's fantastic. Doom 2016, play it. Like what's there to recommend about it at this point? Just play it. Next one is a game I did talk about during Game of the Generation that I know I actually do have to pitch to people, but it is the new King's Quest game that's the new Sierra team put out. Nothing about this game should have been good, but they somehow nailed it. The script in it is compelling. The performance of every single voice actor, and including Wallace Shawn, is absolutely amazing. Um, it does that Telltale style of adventure, but it's really, really, really fucking good. I almost think it sells that game short compared to the Telltale games because of how much better it does everything. Branching narrative that again, ultimately you're going to end up at the same spot every time. Like it's going to end the same more or less, but it does a really good job with the choices you making, altering the narrative in ways that really pay off and work out really well. If you even slightly like that kind of narrative point and click adventure game, even if you don't, just fucking play King's Quest. It's so gosh darn good. Following that up is a game that for the longest time was my favorite game of its respective year until a little game called Undertale came out later that year, but it is Ori and the Blind Forest. Tour de force Metroidvania game, glorious visuals, fantastic platforming elements, fantastic Metroidvania elements, and it's just a gorgeous game. One of the best looking games I have ever seen. I love its art style. It's It's one of the best Metroidvanias ever made. I think it blows the fucking pants off Axiom Verge. I can say that for certain. But it's not the best Metroidvania ever made, but pretty fucking close. Play Ori. It's on Game Pass at this point. It's also on Switch. I think it got ported over to there. It might be on PC as well. It made a sequel to it that had a lot of issues at launch that prevented me from really getting into it, but I might get around to it again at some point. Play the first one though. Fan-fucking-tastic. Up next is the best game in its genre. It is Bayonetta 2, the best character action game ever made. Bayonetta 1 is also a really, really, really well made character action game, and I do highly recommend it as well. But Bayonetta 2 is perfect. It's the way that it wants you to dodge and play a more defensive style somehow actually works in its benefit in a character action game, with the ability to activate Witch Time when you do pick perfect dodges to slow down everything around you. It is super accessible. It is on it. It's that issue of it is the best one of its class, but also the one I would recommend people start with just because of how easy it is to get into, but how tough it is to master. Play Bayonetta 2. It's not even locked to the Wii U anymore. It's on Switch now as well, but only those two platforms. Up next is a game whose first game is garbage. It is Yooka-Laylee and the Impossible Lair. This is the the original Rareware devs follow up to Yooka-Laylee, where instead of making a new Banjo-Kazooie, they decided to make a new Donkey Kong Country, and it's so good. It blows my mind how bad the original Yooka-Laylee is, and then how good this is. It is one of the best 2D platformers ever made. The crux of it is there is one super hard level that you can tackle at any time, and completing all of the other levels in the game gives you one extra hit that you can take on that level. If you like Donkey Kong Country, you absolutely owe it to yourself to play this game. It's got Grant Kirkhope, it's got David Wise, it's got so many good things. It is one of the best Rareware games ever made. And Yooka-Laylee sucked so much. Following up with another fantastic platformer is Astrobot's Rescue Mission. It is the VR Astrobot game, which should not have been good somehow. Astrobot was like the weird, like PlayStation mascot for like the PS4's like weird camera and like gimmicky shit. So they put it into this gimmicky ass VR game, and then it's somehow one of the best 3D platformers ever made. And what it does with VR is nothing short of stupendous. VR should be used for more 3D platformers. Being able to peer around levels, look for secrets, and hunt around for stuff is so good. As well as it's also just a good 3D platform on top of that. And I think a lot of people who are now playing the new Astrobot game, Astro's Playroom, will hopefully find a way to go back and maybe play this if they can get their hands on a VR headset. I almost wish this game had a non-VR version just so more people could play it, but you would lose a little bit. Up next are IO Interactive's new Hitman games, Hitman 1 and Hitman 2. They have really approached the new Hitman with developing it as a platform, so I'm counting it as one thing because it's just the fucking set of levels. So I guess Hitman 2 because it has all the original content in it. These games are perfect Hitman games. They are perfect stealth action games. They are so unbelievably terrific. The amount of like fun, radiant things that you can do, abusing these are not like puzzle boxes, but they are like little clockwork things where everyone's going to be in these certain places at certain times, and it's what can you do to accomplish these tasks in quick and creative ways, giving all of these like super cool toys to you. Every single level is still pretty good, even but some of them are amazing. Absolutely phenomenal experiences. Play the new Hitman games. You owe it to yourself. They are so good. And up next is the last game that I am going to be talking about in this particular video before we get into our like proper top tens. It almost made the top 10 cut, but it is Bubsy3D.com. This just go and find Bubsy3D.com. It's a URL website, and it is amazing. It is artwork. It is art about the nature of art and the way people interact with art. It's fucking wild. It's by the person who did the Sonic Dreams collection, which I feel like is the contemporarily popular one, or like the most well-known of the things that this guy has done. But go play it. It's better than Frog Fractions. It's just fucking great. Bubsy visits the James Turrell retrospective, Bubsy3D.com. And with that, I'm going to call it quits for this top 140, or I guess it wouldn't be the top 140, but the top 150 games of the last generation. I strongly encourage people to play every single one of these games that I have listed today, because they're all fantastic. Um, but I, I I hope that this was useful in some regard. Like I realize I'm not aiming for comedy with it, which, and then again, that's awful Jones to say what we do on a normal basis is comedy. But this was a very good generation for games, and I feel like a lot of people may not remember it necessarily as fondly as like the Xbox 360 or the PS3 generation, but there are so many titles that are absolute classics that will remain through the history of games and will be things to look back on, to take design decisions from, to go back and play in the future. And I really just think that this is a phenomenal generation, despite a lot of maybe not so good games, maybe a lot of remakes coming out, things like that. But there are so many things to not sleep on. But I will see you again next week for the wrap up of our top 10 games of the generation. I will see you